All right, we recording now?
You should say so. It
Okay.
does here.
Oh, okay, I see up at the top. All right, so anyway, so I had an experience the other day where I was meditating and some Piti started to come up. And when it came up, I could clearly see myself craving for more. And it was very, very clear. And part of the way I knew that I was craving for more was I kept wanting to put my attention on the pleasure to make it grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And
So even though you did have pleasure, it wasn't good enough.
that was my state of mind at the
Huh, well, well, that's the state of mind that most very, very wealthy people who have a lot of money. It's whatever how much they've got, it's not enough.
time. Right. Well, the positive of that situation when it happened was that I could very clearly see that it was craving that was happening. And I could also very clearly see that if I let go, then it actually would have gotten better if I could let go for the need for it to get better. And then I kind of got distracted and lost in thought and went and did something else. But
Which meant you lost your jhana altogether.
I did.
Yeah. But at least you had an insight on the way. It's sort of like falling out of an airplane without a parachute. There is a crash landing, but at least you can enjoy the trip on the way down.
Yeah. So a question that arose afterwards when I was thinking about what happened was, so when the PT comes up, is it best to keep coming back to the breath, or would you recommend actually putting your attention on the pleasure itself? Because I've heard that recommended by some other teachers here and there, and I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Well, the ultimate answer is yes, no, both, neither, and never mind.
Okay.
Kind of, kind of in that order. In the sense that piti is a jhana factor,
Right.
and it needs to be collected or gathered together. That the whole quality of the word samadhi is not concentration, but rather gathering the factors together.
Okay.
Sort of like a fine watch, the old style that had gears and pulleys and no, not pulleys in a watch, but
It was a complicated machine. I get your drift.
yes, but it had to be in samadhi.
As in, you had to get all the pieces all put together and working together.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Okay,
Okay.
that's what we actually need to think about is samadhi. But most Westerners, when they never understand the word samadhi, but they hear the word concentration, and off they go into a direction that's completely irrelevant to the practice.
I've been there and done that. When I started meditating, I used to think that if I could just concentrate hard enough, it would start feeling good, and it doesn't work that way.
No, generally it gives people headaches and stuff like that. It does not give you concentration. Does not bring joy.
Yeah,
Joy brings concentration.
right, because you don't want to be anywhere else. You're just right here doing what you're
you you've heard me say that before.
doing.
Yes. And so the Westerners who are not getting what they need out of the practice because they're practicing it upside down. They're
Mm-hmm.
confusing what the cause and the effect is. They think concentration, if they get it, will bring joy,
Right.
rather than being the way that no, no, you have to develop the joy, and when you get it to the state of satisfaction, and here you are sitting in rapt joy, in pity, you call it, and you're still singing Rod Stewart's song, I can't get no satisfaction. Let me have more. I want more and more. But I
Oh, I
tried,
try
and
hard.
I tried, and I tried. I'm not going to hit that high note.
Well, you should be satisfied with your voice the way it is. Haha.
That's what satisfaction is. When we have that rapture, that's what we get is I can do this. It
Right.
is all based in the attitude of finally coming out of victim.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are in pity, wrapped in joy, and you're still playing victim.
Mm-hmm.
Not good enough. I want more. I want more.
Right, right. And then I got excited and I started thinking about it and thinking about how to get more, thinking about what is this, how can I do this again, yada 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 yada.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go into that, then we lose that state.
Right.
Rather than keeping the joy going, you wanted to manipulate it in ways that you didn't know how to do.
Right, yeah, I was falling back into this old habit of trying to take control of it, more or less.
Well, I'm not saying that you can't. I'm saying you don't have yet the skills to do that.
Go on.
In which direction? Into being satisfied with the joy that you can get, or go on about what skill you need to get into that thing that you're now wanting to have again. Where's the satisfaction, boy? Satisfaction on its own grows.
Right. Okay.
And it's almost like a habit. The more you get, the more often you are in a state of satisfaction, the more you like being in a state of satisfaction. This is really nice. It really is to have no worry, no place to go. Everything is just fine the way it is, even with Donald Trump. It's okay.
Yeah.
Nice entertainment from time to time.
Yeah.
And I'm satisfied with the way things are. This is the way that we want to start looking at everything. That's the noble way. When you get into a state of satisfaction, then you don't want anything. And when you don't want anything, then how could you possibly go rape, murder, steal, lie, cheat, screw with, get drunk on, etc.?
Yeah, I see what you mean. And
And so,
that's some. Sorry, go
go ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say that that's something I've been noticing for myself in regards to alcohol for quite a while, like a few years. I mostly just don't feel the need for it, really. And it's something that I noticed. I would never say I was a big drinker or whatever, but I used to enjoy alcohol. But then, as life went on and I grew up and started to get more mature, I got to a point where it's just, it is what it is. It's nothing special.
Mm.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, I was in the same position recently, months ago, that I was in when I was a little child.
Yeah.
I've gone all the way back to childhood in the sense of alcohol. Yuck! What is that? Oh, you're trying to sweeten it, huh? It don't work.
Okay. So, when I asked you my first question, your answer was yes, no, maybe, sort of, sometimes.
Hmm. What was the question again?
The question was, when the PT comes up, understanding in the first place that, you have to be satisfied with what you've got. But with that out of the way, is it best to come back to the breath or put your attention on the PT?
That's the both.
So hold them both in attention at the same time.
No, that
What do you...
idea of at the same time is the delusion of a time clock.
Okay.
So let's broaden that now into the length of a breath rather than trying to go for defining a now in microseconds or milliseconds or nanoseconds. Let's look at the second or the time frame as this present moment that can last. It's not really time related.
Okay.
Suspends time in a way because time becomes not a factor.
Right.
But we can now, when we're in the now, do all of the things that need to be done. And we can do them in the order of our one by one as they occur, or in a natural sequence. And when you understand the natural sequence, then you keep going around that sort of avenue, going up and down, basically marching up and down the Anapanasati ladder, fiddling with things, gladdening the mind, paying close attention to what's going on,
Right.
factoring in the 7 factors of enlightenment. You can even do some metta. Wow, I wish everybody felt this good. We wouldn't have any problems with politics if everybody felt this good. Those kind of thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, metta is
So,
lots of fun.
yeah, so metta, or another one is the Eightfold Noble Path. Ah, this is really third noble truth stuff here, boy.
Right.
So we start looking at what is dissatisfying and what is satisfying. That, in fact, is a very excellent definition of dukkha. The word suffering is a lousy definition of dukkha. You can see that it was Christian in orientation. They have to do everything overblown.
Right.
It can't be a simple dissatisfaction. It's got to be a really big one.
Yeah. Right.
But when we see it as a simple dissatisfaction, anything that's dissatisfactory to us, let's find a way of allowing it to be satisfying.
Okay.
Because after all, it really is a little thing. It's not a really big thing. It's not suffering. It's just dissatisfaction.
Yeah. Well, you can make it big. You can
That's the
make it
whole
really
point. That's what humans do. That's
Yeah.
that, and you know what making it big means? Making myself small. You know what that means? Same thing as victim. I'm a victim to it. Doesn't matter how big it is. It's bigger than I am.
big. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And,
so it's a weakling's, victim's, loser's, hider's position. It's not the roar of a lion, of a Buddha.
yeah, it's not I can do it.
It's not I can do it. It's, oh no, not me again. Why me?
Yeah. And I kind of see what you mean, because the whole way that I even got in that state in the first place was by making a deliberate point to be grateful for the breath and to be grateful for being able to come back to it over and over again.
So why didn't you do that again and again and again rather than saying, oh, Piti, I want some Piti. Ah, ah.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I can, hindsight's 2020, and looking back on it, it's pretty obvious that that would have been the better thing to do.
Uh-huh. Well, next time that you'll have that, it will not be in the rearview mirror. It'll be what you're running into.
Right, right,
And then later, it will not be what was in the rearview mirror, or what you're running into is something out there in the distance that you can plan on and take care of.
right.
And that's what skill development then is all about.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is you got to see it in the rearview mirror and say, and that's the first insight.
Yeah,
Is seeing it after you hit it.
yeah.
The
And
next time you got to be right in the middle of it, right in that collision, and it'll happen again, and you'll say, "Wait a minute, I remember this."
yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of something that came to me the other day, which is that when your goal is perfection, everything you do is a failure because it's all falling short of perfection. But when your goal is just to go through the process of learning, then even making mistakes is just more opportunities for success, because you can learn from the mistakes, and that's the success. That's it right there.
Exactly. And the word mistake and all of that has to also be put into context. How much feeling is attached to that word?
Generally negative.
Generally negative. Okay, so why, if it's a learning opportunity, do we call it a mistake?
Just conventions of language, I suppose.
Yeah. Look how even our English language screws with us. Screws with your mind. In fact, that's the language you use when you're thinking. Ain't that awful?
All I know is I know nothing, but I don't even know that because that would be a thought.
That's the whole quality of staying open.
Yeah.
That's the essence of right view, is to still say, oh, not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen all of that stuff. I want to see it again. Let's make sure. I think something's in there bubbling now. It don't look the same as it did a minute ago. So this is the way of right view, is to keep watching, keep looking. And in this regard, about now you're talking to me, but you're going to be back on the cushion. You're going to be back into that state again. And so the point is to be on guard.
Right.
To watch for the kinds of things that will pull you out of the rapture and the pity that you have right now. And wanting more of it, get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So watch for that wanting. That craving is what destroyed what you did have. Like you owned a bank and you wanted another, and so you bet your old bank against the new one, and now you got nothing.
Yep. Well, I can just go back there. I know how I got there. All I
Yeah,
had
that's
to
the
do was
whole
just be
point.
happy to
Exactly.
be able to see what the mind is doing.
Mm.
It was really a
And
very
then,
simple thing.
and then be satisfied with that,
Yeah.
because that's nice. Think about how nice that really is.
Yeah.
To be free from suffering, free from unwholesome thoughts, free to kind of think the kind of thoughts that would be wholesome and useful and beneficial. Thoughts of metta, thoughts of happiness, thoughts of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Just nice things. I have heard that Vila Maramsi recommends puppies. And I cannot argue with that one at all. But we find a nice place.
Yeah.
And we maintain that. And wanting more of it is not a nice place.
Right.
So finding that sweet spot and then maintaining it, knowing that if I develop, I mean, this is kind of future oriented, but knowing that there is a developmental process, that this satisfaction that I'm experiencing now will grow. You don't have to hope for that, because that's knowledge.
Right.
You have watched it happen. You've watched it grow, and that satisfaction will continue to grow. And so we become satisfied with just, let's make sure we maintain this satisfaction.
Yeah.
Because we've got the jhana factors together, and we've got a mind fit for work now, because we can apply it to the things that need to be applied to. And why is that? Because I'm determined to not lose this state of satisfaction.
Right.
That's where the drive comes, to be able to apply the mind and keep it focused.
Yeah.
And what does it focus on? No bad thoughts coming in this door. And if you're here, out you go. One of the old analogies that I would give is like a bar bouncer. The bar bouncer is at the door, and he's going to check you out, and he's going to make sure that you're okay before you come into that bar. But his real name is Bouncer, which means if he gets somebody in the bar who's already gotten by him and is making trouble in the bar now, it's going to get bounced right out of here.
Right.
So actually what we're talking about is first job is a bar bouncer.
Right. But at the same time, I see what you mean, but I have to be careful with the attitude that I put into doing that. Because there was a time when I would try to throw bad thoughts out of mind, but I would do it with a bad attitude.
In what way? What was
in
the
way
attitude?
of basically kicking myself for getting into that state of mind, when the correct thing to do is to have compassion for yourself.
Be friends with yourself.
Right.
Metta starts right here.
Yep. And the great thing about metta is I can do it anytime. Anytime I notice myself getting into a state of suffering or anything like that, I can just have compassion for myself for being in that state.
Excellent.
And it just immediately feels better.
And one of the most compassionate things that you do for yourself, which is actually a requirement, and that is breathe.
Right.
And so when you start locking step with metta and breathing, then you'll have metta with every breath. And
Mm-hmm.
what more do you want? That's really high quality satisfaction there.
Yeah, that's good stuff, isn't it?
And when I say metta, I'm talking about it in the sense of friendship, to be friends with everything.
Yeah.
Anything that comes up, especially the kinds of things we used to compete with or feel overpowered by.
Mm-hmm.
That a lion is strong enough and powerful enough to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And
Because you don't
so,
have to be defensive.
right, there's nothing to defend. So, in that regard, we even go that way with anxiety. That we
Oh yeah.
get to know it, we make it a friend, rather than having it control us or drive us or make us think in a certain way. Instead, we use that energy as basically the only energy that's left.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why would I ever get up out of this chair? Unless I find something to do, And
Yeah.
so there's that anxiety or restlessness,
Mm-hmm.
the sensation of going to do something
Mm-hmm.
or doing something.
Yeah. Specifically doing anything else besides what you're doing right now.
Exactly, right. Exactly.
And
So,
then when you find something else to do, that's not good enough either. But it
okay,
can
so
be.
aha, I see you, Mr. Anxiety, is the right way to look at it. In
Yeah.
fact, that's all we're doing is looking at it, is to be able to see the anxiety, because by seeing it, you've automatically taken control of it. It was only when it was subconscious or that you weren't seeing it and paying any attention to it that it was in control.
Right. Right.
And it was in control because that was the state and the sensations of the reptilian brain, but our awareness part of our world is conscious, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the frontal cortex. That's what makes us human. The
Right.
human part of our mind can see, and that's what we want: alert, awake, thriving,
Right.
breathing, doing its job. And that's why we work with the satisfaction and the that Peekaboo also talks about it, having a mind that's fit for work.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the frontal cortex is giving all of the work to the instincts and just driving instinctually, that's not a mind that's fit for work. That just does rote things.
So something just occurred to me, and I wonder if we can talk about how accurate this is. So what just occurred to me was that the way you get the mind fit for work is to be satisfied with being able to see things the way they're happening, and also that is the work. That is the work that you're doing. Okay. I was just making sure I had that right.
Basically, what your job is to see how the Dhamma fits together.
Right.
That Buddhism is delivered to the West like a jigsaw puzzle, a 500 piece or a 1,000 piece puzzle.
Right.
And some of those edges are pretty jagged,
Mm-hmm.
but everything begins to fit together like and so you begin to understand basically there's a picture here, and that if you can get a good teacher who is going to paint you or give you a photograph of what your mosaic that you're putting together actually looks like, then you can fairly well put that thing together because you know what you're doing now. You've got an understanding, you've got the map.
Right.
And so in that regards, the teacher can give you that map, but he can only do it by showing you bits and pieces at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he gives it to you all at the same time, you're not going to get it all right. Because
Right.
I can deliver it to you there's so many ways to say it in one liners or less.
Yeah.
Don't worry, be happy. That's the full teaching of the Buddha. How about never mind, start again? That's Goenka's whole teaching.
Yeah.
The Buddha said, dukkha, dukkha nirodha.
Mm-hmm.
Ananda had the shortest one of all. He just called it path.
Right.
So we could say it in short, but to get full understanding, we got to take this thing apart anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing that, you begin to see a good picture of what's going on, and then you can figure out how to put the puzzle that you've been carrying around in your mind about what is life all about, and you can build that picture up for yourself so that you really know what is what.
Right.
And that's when you can lion's roar, because you know what's going on. You can see it, and you know
Right.
you can see it because you keep looking at it.
And you know, despite the fact that I got distracted and restless when that PT came up, I'm actually really glad that I was able to clearly see that it was craving going. I mean, it was like right here in my face. It was so clear that this is craving.
Isn't that a miracle that craving presented itself like that for you?
Yeah.
So
Now I know
now
what
that
to look for. I know
you
what to
can
watch
see
out
it, it's
for.
not going to have the power over you that it had in the past, because you could have done that, everything, except not seeing that craving. And then
Right.
you would have gone right back and done the same thing next time, over and over and over again.
Right.
It's like something that I read on the internet. This was really funny, that the guy had read a post or an article about from some monk that was talking about past life experiences that he's had, what some people call pasties.
Right.
And so then this guy comments, wouldn't it be awesome if I could have that experience too? I want a pasty.
Mm.
So I mean, he's caught in exactly where you were caught in, except he cannot see the craving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wouldn't it be awesome if he could sit and be satisfied and not craving for things he doesn't have?
Right. Yeah.
So that's where you are, exactly. I mean, this is exactly the same thing. He was craving for an experience, and so were you. It's exactly the same thing. Whether you label it differently or not, it's not the point. The point is exactly that we crave experiences.
Right.
That's one of the major reasons why Westerners will squat on the floor, is they're looking for an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And all they wind up with is finding dissatisfaction. But if they would go looking for satisfaction instead, they'd get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you
And
know, it's funny that people sit down and meditate and, you know, get bored and restless or whatever, and they say, oh, I must be doing it wrong. But being able to see that is why you sat down.
exactly so. So they should see, oh, I'm a winner. I can see it now.
Yeah.
I can see that craving. Wow, isn't that marvelous? I can see it.
Because when you see it, you can do something about it. It's nice.
Really is. That's so. This is basically what the practice is all about.
Yeah.
Never mind. Start again. Don't
Right.
worry. Be happy.
Right.
These are all very short versions of that whole thing. So it comes right down to a little package. It can be said so easily. But we have to develop so much complexity, and part of that reason for the complexity is because we need that deep level of understanding. It does not come a unit that can be used
Mm-hmm.
in unitary form. We have to unpack that suitcase
Right. Yeah.
so that we clearly understand how much it is. Because if it's just a one-liner, then it's so easy to throw away. How many one-liners have you ever heard? The world is full of one-liners. World is full of good advice. But
It's
until we
easy. it's
You
too
go ahead.
easy to get into the mindset that it can't be that simple. I've noticed myself getting in that mindset many times in the past.
Anything that is sold as a bill of goods has to have a value. And that's where Western Buddhism has come to. They're trying to sell a product. They want to keep that meditation retreat center open because they don't trust that they're going to have enough brand new students.
Right.
So they want to keep the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to tell you everything that they need to tell you. And most likely the reason for that is because they sure didn't tell them either. So they don't even know what they don't know.
Yeah.
But you meet a wise one and they'll say, yeah, it's hard to do because it's hard to change, but to know what to change is easy.
Right.
But what makes it hard is because we're not satisfied with our satisfaction yet.
But I can be.
That it can be
It can be.
exactly up to you, your choice. And that up to you, your choice is actually part of the Eightfold Noble Path. That's what right view and then right attitude. This is what all this is about is right attitude.
Right.
Coming out of being a victim, having a whole lot of work piled on them to do,
Mm-hmm.
into you're a lion. This is easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I notice I'm just taking a second to put my thoughts together here, but
Samadhi in operation.
well, more and more recently I've been seeing this pattern of drifting in and out of the right state of mind. And the more that happens, and the more I look at that process going on, it's starting to become more apparent that it's not a static thing. It's like this living, breathing thing that moves. You come in of it, and you come into it, and you come out of it. But and
That
whenever you're
it.
in it, it just seems so simple, which it is.
Mm-hmm. And when you're not in it, it seems so hard because you're not.
Right. Yeah.
Darkness is hell. And then you flip the switch, and oh, now you can see. And then you flip the switch off, and now you're blind again. And it's just that simple.
But whenever you flip the light on, just whatever you're looking for is, oh, it's right there. It was right there. It was right there the whole time.
When you shine a light on it, you can see it. That's the whole quality then of right view, is that investigative quality to
Right.
really look at what's going on. And it's also the basis and foundation of compassion because you actually begin to see what people actually are presenting to you in this present moment rather than remembering them from the past. When you see someone, we often just mix a whole lot of old stuff with it.
Yeah, I had a personal experience of that the other day. So, um, there was one of my coworkers who I had been holding a grudge against, which I know was unskillful, but it
Yeah,
is
but
what
it
I
was
was doing.
fun. I had a grudge or two.
Well, let's put it this way. I enjoyed it in the sense that an alcoholic enjoys alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So you think it's
Drunk
fun
with
while
power, right?
you think it's fun while you're mired in it. When you come out of it, you realize, well, Why would I ever do that to myself? It wasn't fun at all. But anyway, on to my story. So I had been meditating, and I came into this state where I wasn't so fixated on my own internal neurotic bullcrap. And it seemed like a sense of compassion was naturally flowing out of that, but I wasn't practicing metta deliberately. Okay. I was just okay,
How about
and that
open?
freed me up to be more present with what she was saying and the way she was presenting herself in that exact moment, and it was actually a very positive experience.
I understand.
Yeah.
Making friends with people is a very positive experience. I would much rather be friends with the students than to be teacher student or therapist client, one up, one down. Oh no, it's much better when I can bring the student up to the level of happiness and we can be friends together. That's what the Dhamma is really all about anyway.
Yeah, and that's better for everybody.
And there is one of the high pitters of conceit. The Pali word is mana, and is related to manut. And the word manut means to be human, but the word mana has the quality of competing,
Okay.
to be in competition with. And that's normally how humans relate to each other. That there will be a few people that will relate within our group of being in our nest, maybe our family or this little group, against everybody else. And everybody else is an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we even let that outsider insider tribal mentality that we have that comes out of the territorial instinct mess with our family too. So that we wind up having a very, very tiny little territory, and that little tiny territory is called me.
And then you feel like you have to defend yourself against everyone and everything, and everyone is an enemy, and everything that happens is a tragedy.
And everything that anybody says can be taken as an insult,
Mm-hmm. Right.
as an attack.
Right.
And then you go onto the internet and you find out, hey, you were right. Everything everybody says is an attack. Why is that? Because everybody's got a tiny little me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard for anybody to get some us going.
Yeah. And also another thing about arguing with people on the internet is it's so easy to forget that there's actually a human being on the other side reading that. Because you,
It's
you don't
even more
see it first.
difficult
What
to
you see
remember that
is
there's a human being over here writing this stuff, too. It's really a human being. It's not a me at all.
yeah.
But you're right. That the internet loses um, its familiarity and
Mm-hmm.
boils everything down to text.
Yeah.
When some of the most outrageously funny things that ever been said have also been equally trounced as being racist, bigoted, uh, quadrophobic, I don't know what.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem is that a lot of the joy cannot be put into text, not
Yeah.
even with an emoji.
Right.
And so that's one of the problems is that the lack of communication, but that only doubles the real problem. And the real problem is that everybody feels lonely. But more to the point at that level on the internet is everybody feels like they will gain some benefit if they have other people agree with them. And so they have to be right in order for other people to agree with them. And so everybody goes around being right.
Yeah.
And the other problem with that is that and I think that this is the worst part, democratic. The internet is democratic. What do we mean by that? Everybody's got a voice. Everybody has a say-so. Everybody has an opinion. And somehow or another, it's okay to say the most raunchy, down, despicable things in the name of, well, it's only my opinion. Well, of course it was your opinion, you turd. Why are you telling us your opinion? Does that make what you just said okay?
Right.
And so that's the danger is that it is okay to say bad things because after all, it's only my opinion.
Yeah. Things that you would never say in person.
Things
However,
you'd never see.
but even in situations where you wouldn't say something in person, you might still be thinking it. And in those situations, the thing to do is work on what's
Oh
going
no.
on inside.
Even if you said it, it would be said in a more acceptable way than the way it's presented on screen.
Yeah.
At least it's a human saying it.
Right.
That
They
is
can see
that
you
it's a whole
smile.
lot
They can
easier
hear
to
your
keep
tone
our
of voice.
humanity, as you were saying. Right, tone of voice, facial expressions, other things like even um, demonstrating anxiety,
Right.
like being nervous or any of that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff that's good information in all cases. Most of it's missing. They say, in fact, the actual verbal communication between people is down there somewhere near 10% or so.
Yeah.
That the real data is always done with facial expressions, body gesture, all kinds of stuff that we have in the real world that is limited on Skype calls, but still makes it effective.
Yeah.
To where in text it's so easy to be misunderstood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Especially when people are trying to protect their ego. Is once somebody says something that's wrong, it's almost impossible on the internet to get them to change that position. To where in a conversation like that, I can basically talk almost anybody into anything as long as it's right, as long as it's Dhamma. I can get anybody to believe anything. But online, forget it. Not even worth the effort. Because
Yeah.
once somebody takes a position about something, they will keep that position no matter what. How dare you think I'm going to learn anything from you? I don't even know who you are. You're just a screen on my computer.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything just feels so much more relaxed when that falls away. You don't have to be right. Don't have to be right. You don't have to win.
Now, with friends, you don't have to be right. And in that concept of that, that's back to conceit.
Mhm.
That's what we find on the internet, but we only find that on the internet because we also find it on the meditation cushion. That's the important point.
Right.
That we compete with ourselves. We compete with, I mean, I imagine that the guys on Reddit that spend an hour a day on Reddit will also spend an hour a day in meditation thinking about Reddit.
Yeah.
So it's that the stuff that we have to deal with is to be seen. And that craving that you're talking about is exactly that, to be seen. He's right. You said you put your hands up and you said he's right in front of us. Well, wherever it was.
Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me, but you froze up, so I'm gonna hang up and call you back.